BMW E40. Which one is this again? The one with the V10? BMW E60 M5. What is it about these cars, eh? What is it about these cars and rod bearings? As soon as you mention E60 M5, you get 1,000 people having an anxiety attack about rod bearings. What's all that about, eh? Now, if you're looking into buying one of these cars, or you just recently bought one, you'll probably start digging around on the internet, looking for what are the common problems with these cars. You might even want to get on the front foot with your preventative maintenance and whatnot. And what you'll find is heaps and heaps of information about these rod bearing issues. Catastrophic engine failure, this, that and the other thing, you know. But something that I've noticed myself is you see a lot of people writing a lot of information about rod bearing issues, but you don't see that much information about people who have experienced the issue. You know, they might put out a post on a forum or whatnot and say, I've had this issue with my rod bearings, they've failed, I had catastrophic engine failure, whatnot. Seems to be very disproportionate. So this leads me to question the validity of this problem. Is it overhyped? Is this rod bearing issue with the E60 M5 overhyped? Now, talking about my own experience in the part of the world where I live, I've only ever known one other E60 M5 experienced rod bearing issues. The rod bearings failed. It was because the owner ran the car low on oil. The rod bearings were replaced, and then the car went on to live another day. There wasn't any catastrophic engine failure, this type of thing, you know. So based on my own experiences and what people often say about the rod bearing issues with these cars, I start to question what's real and what isn't, you know. So of course now I've got this YouTube channel and I have a lot of interaction with other E60 M5 owners, which is great, and it's always open and honest communication, which I love. So now, rather than just rely on my own local experience, I can get an opinion from M5 owners all over the world, you see. So what I thought I'd do is generate a community post on my channel, and we'll see about how many people have actually experienced rod bearing issues or not. Now I must say the results of the poll were reasonably interesting. Had 60% of owners say that they'd never experienced any rod bearing issues. And the one thing that surprised me the most is 35% of owners said they'd changed their rod bearings out preventatively and found that the existing ones weren't too bad. Now, it wasn't the fact that the rod bearings weren't too bad that surprises me. It's the fact that that bigger percentage of owners have gone to the trouble to change out the rod bearings preventatively in an effort to really look after their car. So that's great to hear. I'm a big fan of preventative maintenance. It's something that's always worked for me in the past. Awesome to hear. And then the one thing that didn't surprise me at all is that only 5% of E60 M5 owners had experienced rod bearing issues. So 5%, you know, that's neither here nor there. In the real world, that's not a big enough percentage to start giving you nightmares about your car. I mean, come on. But in saying that, 5% still 5%. So what that tells us is that it's not that common, but it does still have the potential to happen with these cars. Now then, there's often two questions I get asked about on my channel quite frequently. The first one is, I've not changed my rod bearings out, but should I get an oil analysis done? And the second question is, what mileage should I get my rod bearings changed out? So now we'll start off with the first question, and that is, shall I get an oil analysis done before diving into my engine, tearing out the old bearings, putting the new ones back in, all the time and effort and money that's going to have to go into it? Is it really necessary? Will an oil analysis point me in the right direction, whether it needs doing or not? Now there's two things I find really interesting when E60 M5 owners get an oil analysis done. Now I often hear that when they get the results back, they find that the report says there wasn't a great deal of particles in the oil, but then they go and change out the rod bearings preventatively anyway and find that they were heavily worn. Or on the other hand, we'll get the results back saying that there was a lot of particles in the oil, and then they jump in to change the rod bearings out in a hurry, you know, panicking about it, and to find that the old ones were all right. So what's all that about, eh? And this happens frequently. Well, it all comes down to using the purpose of the oil analysis properly. Now, it doesn't really work if you just go and get a one-off oil analysis done. And okay, you take the sample, you send it off to the company, they come up back with all these readings. Obviously, to the average person, the readings don't mean a great deal, so they'll often write a summary at the bottom of the report. But you need a benchmark to test against to get a proper summary. So whether they're just using a generic baseline or whether they've done a few, you know, the odd E60 M5 here and there and they're basing it against that, I don't know. But you've got to look at it like this. You could have two E60 M5 owners. The cars could be at equal mileage. They might do, say, both owners 12,000 miles a year. One owner might get one oil change done a year. The other might change the oil 3 times a year. So then at the end of that year, if both owners send off their oil sample off for an analysis, how are the particle readings going to be the same? You know, they've got a car with the same amount of mileage on, say the same year as well. They've done the same amount of miles in a year before the sample's sent off, but one lot of oil has been changed out 3 times and the other once. So you're going to have a much bigger build-up of particles in one oil sample than the other. So what you need to do is create a baseline. And to do that, what you need to do is create a trend. So what do I mean by trend? Well, that's where you arrange for frequent oil analysis to be done at set intervals. And you're going to change the oil out right after you've sent it. So you're going to maybe run the car 12,000 miles a year. You might change your oil out 3 times during that year. Before you change it out the last time during that year, you'll send the sample off. And then the next year you'll do the same, and then the next year you'll do the same, exactly the same intervals. And what happens over time is you build what you call a trend. You know, it doesn't have to be once a year. You could do it every 3 months after every oil change, or you could do it once every 6 months, whatever, it doesn't matter. But once you start building a trend, then you can start getting a good idea. Say if you put it on a graph, you might see a slow increase over 2, 3, 4 years of rod bearing particles build up, and then that'll tell you they are getting worn, the particles are building up, it's time to change them out. Or you might find that the line's pretty steady throughout the years, and then you might get a spike all of a sudden, so that's going to tell you there's a problem as well. So if you're going to go to the trouble of getting an oil analysis done, you need to do it properly. You can't just do one sample and base it off that. Now then, second question. At what mileage should you change your rod bearings out? Well, to be honest, that's an impossible question to answer, especially with these cars, because it all comes down to the way the car's been looked after, the way it's been driven, how often the oil's been changed out, what oil's been used. There's so many variables that can affect the rod bearings, especially with these engines with it revving to over 8,000 RPMs. It's just an impossible question to answer. So where does that leave you as an E60 M5 owner? Do you change your rod bearings out preventatively? Do you just leave them in the hope that there's going to be no damage come up in the near future? Well, it's a good question. It's a good question. Now, one thing's for sure, these cars do have the potential for rod bearing failure, without a doubt. Is it that common? Not in my experience. So my advice to anybody thinking about this, asking themselves this question, is that if you plan to keep the car, you know, for 6 months a year, if you're one of these people that changes your car every 5 minutes, are you going to dump that much money and time into a car and get in front with all that preventative maintenance if you're planning on getting rid of it? I'd say if the car's running nice, if you've got no issues, and if you're confident the car's been well looked after, I probably wouldn't bother. But if you're like myself and you like keeping your cars for a long time, you like getting stuck in with that preventative maintenance and looking after your car, you care about what you're looking after, then I'd say when you first get the car, it would probably be worth pulling the sump off, putting a fresh set of rod bearings in, put a new Vanos high pressure line in, because they do fail quite frequently, especially early models like this. This is a 2005. And also pull the Vanos pump out and give it a good inspection. If there's any damage, repair it, replace it, whatever. Once you've got them 3 big items sorted, that's the money spent, that's it all sorted, and then the car's going to put you in good stead for many miles to come, and then you ain't got any worries. Alright guys, so there we have it. I hope that answers a few questions, but just remember, it's your car, you do as you like, and whatever you decide to do, you've got to be prepared to live with the consequences. And as always, if you found the video interesting or useful, don't forget to give it a like, and make sure you check out the rest of my YouTube channel for more M5 content. I'm MTech Guy. Thanks a lot for watching.